So in getting by during a capital chemist career, where you have to work for Roger, you pretty much, to function, you need to cultivate the attitude and outlook where you understand, pertaining to Roger, you know that, well, I obviously can't, I have to pay attention to the things you say when I'm working for you, but after I've left the store each workday and returned back to my home, if people start to speak or claim that you actually do in fact exist, then probably we'll run into a problem. I think that Freemasons shouldn't be allowed the luxury of scientific curiosity because their religion is so stupid that they are incapable of comprehending the scope of it. And sadly, I don't think that's going to change until they've reconciled themselves to the definition of scientific curiosity and respectable answers to the question, what constitutes a stupid religion? Until then, there will be that imbalance. Ultimately, just like as with any other area of life, a person needs to survive. So when you have an employment arrangement with the Capital Chemist Group, you obviously understand that during work hours, there's only so much that you're able to do about the manner in which Roger Tor will choose to speak to your person or to the other people in the company. But yeah, then that though, however, doesn't mean that after the working hours are done, and well, it means that the upshot, if you want to call it that, is that once the working hours are done and you've returned home, then you understand that if other people, a person or other people, are going to try to claim that Roger Tor actually exists, then you might have to contend with a problem or two in your private life, which is it's the sort of nuisance you should at least be getting paid something for, just for the time lost. I think that looking at the Freemasons' texts and their statements and declarations of beliefs, they seem to be taking and consolidating the golden rule from the Abrahamic faiths. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I can imagine them then going, explains a lot of their temperaments. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That sounds, like a universal platform, doesn't it? And I think, yeah, I guess you could say that it would sound like the universal platform of a budding gay rights movement that's about 220 years behind the gay rights movements that actually worked. But yeah, you'll find that sort of pattern, I think, is probably going to seem typical of Masonic thinking as we progress in our study.
London by Tata, strange young town. London by Tata brought me down. Don't like your new face, that's not nice. Got to go far, far. London by Tata.
Come back to the webisodes. Buy Gippsland Dairy, mango, passion fruit, twist yogurt from your local Capital Chemist. Nation.
I don't know what you interview me about. I'm rambling about.
Can you say
garbage.
watch Luke Banton on YouTube?
Watch Luke Banton on YouTube.
Thanks, Max.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye.
Okay, so 50,
Sweat as much as you
54
want.
minutes,
Don't
10, and
engage.
1 minute, 10, 55, 20. Hello, Deterioration website viewer. Thanks for taking the time to check out the channel, the YouTube channel. There's still a lot of sorting out for me to do with clips that need to be trimmed and then divvied out into smaller segments to then be spanned over a number of different episodes so that I can, thank you very much, Chris, so that I can then interpolate various like music video clips. I want to increase the artistic content ratio of art to philosophy. Though in many respects philosophy is to me the art of concepts and thinking. The love of wisdom is one definition of philosophy I was once given. It was when I was attending Gorman House. I think it's in Batman Street, somewhere like that, in Ainsley, close to Civic. And I did I think it was, couldn't have been half a year. Anyway, it was an odd class. Like, I made a few friends there, some chicks who I would see at clubs in years that followed. But they were often like ask around the room type questions, and there was no one answer to the question, so you just saw like all their different characters and idiosyncrasies get mixed into anyway, it created for an interesting. I sat back quiet for most of it, largely because I found the course to be so broad that it's clearly not designed to run the risk of being offensive to anyone's ideology. If they were strictly into the one or another ideology. I was invited back to join for the following semester's course. I think the offer was there even if it was free. But I made the decision to stick to the really challenging debates. Depend. They're not exactly always that challenging, but yeah, we may have made a grand philosophical discovery of the lamest group to debate since fundamentalist Christians. Known for secrecy and some originating somewhere in Europe in the 1600s, I'm of course referring to the Church of the Freemasons, of the Knights Templar, and on their lifelong quest for various honors and yeah. I'm aware of a rumor that they're very much into bolstering their church's regard in the eyes of the monarchy. That some have said that some members of the Freemason Church actually genuinely want to inhale the Queen's queefs. We're at 5 minutes. So anyway, in this episode you'll see me break down some concepts in Freemasonry and chat about them. I worked for 2 Freemasons at a job that I now wish I hadn't invested as much time and effort as I did, Because they certainly take a lot for granted, don't they, supernatural theists? Oh, hello. Yes, welcome to our special feature on Freemasonry, the religion with more holes in it than an overly loved hunk of Swiss cheese. We may or may not have an interview later from Freemason brother of the Knights Templar, Gary Cairns, Capital Chem's co-founder, talking about how it's more of an interest of his to participate in various acts of software hacking than, you know, discuss liabilities or even talk like a philosopher with any shred of now. So in retrospect and reflection on my time as an employee for pharmacy services, there was like I certainly noticed as if years of animosity and resent and attrition had to some extent I'd been freed from it when I began to work as a tech for the Canberra Hospital's pharmacy department. It wasn't a very long contract in terms of the duration for which I worked for them, but when I left there, I did leave thinking, gosh, I've really got to focus on each and every individual point of contention that obviously facilitated the, being that jarred for that amount of time. And I think looking back, I can recall certain, I won't go as strong as to use words like promises, but things that you're told by your employer about, what good things are in store for you and your prospects in the future if you, and I'm not going to bring, drugs into the debate at this point, because this is like a monologue. I'm not having a debate. So, and it's a kindness on my behalf at this point not to be naming the names of just who it was that told me, this, that, and the other drugs. Everyone uses them and blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. I'm only just thinking about what constituted all the negativity that I was subjected to. And I think if you're put in a bind of sorts by things that are they things that have been said to you as part of your education for the business? Is it the boss telling you how he personally thinks things work? But obviously what's been said to you puts you in a definite bind. Like there's only one. I should say binds. So yeah, certainly after leaving, I get to this hospital pharmacy department, and I still worked. I still had a colleague, a pharmacist who was, I would have been more inclined to have wished that he was a boss on a more regular basis in the stores in the Capital Group, but he also would work for the hospital pharmacy department too. So working for him in both environments, it was nice to have familiar face in both places. But I've categorized the nature of most of the issues. Then, in addition to that, are the direct statements that would be uh, directed at me, and then the statements that you get later from pharmacists who are subordinate to this pharmacist, who's one of the he's got the whole emperor type you don't want to get on his wrong side, and he built the business out of nothing with his bare hands, and he's ruthless, and he knows it's survival of the fittest out there, and that's just the way the world works. And he had to clonk his wife to the back of the cerebrum with a club and drag her by her hair into his cave to prove what a man he is. So you don't want to mess with this guy, and it's that sort of type of talk that you go, well, if the things he is saying to me on numerous occasions are absolutely, I mean, either you change certain acts at federal level, or you start to explain what powers of mind this owner of this franchise has, that sufficient that he is of superior intellect on his own, because he built Capital Chemist. He therefore knows more than building the federal government would have been a waste of his time, because because his mind is just that brilliant. That sort of thing. So therefore what he says to you is inerrant and not to be questioned. And if it's illegal, and it's funny because I know, like, I definitely was able to predict certain things about what he would try and do and say, because it's very much, and if you have an issue with the company, then they would prefer to represent that, in fact, instead of there being issues that you have with the franchise and the company and the way you've been treated, that are to be comprehended, although I'm sure that they're it's easier for them to comprehend the things they've said to me than it is for me to comprehend the rightness in it. So so then they'll move to say, well, his childhood must have been all sorts of fucked up, and essentially that just comes back to a moment where there was you were given an ultimatum to really debase yourself as a gesture of showing your level of dedication to this retail award wage chain of, we're holding people's lives and death that's in our hands. So, counselling is so much more vital. This is not stupid fucking Coles or Woolworths. It's just the retail award wage that's equivalent to Coles and Woolworths. But as moral agents, we're that much more superior to those other retail types. Of course, we have to be. This is the sort of bogus pep talks that you will get at staff conferences, where they talk about salary sacrifice. And I tuned out of half of that speech because it's like, is that about how you've already sacrificed half of what we probably deserve to be paid for the amount of ethical pressure you will arguably try to foist on any one of us, award wages. Are you trying to come forward and say that the company's been sacrificing our wages anyway? Oh no, it's some scheme where some scheme about how we spend the money that we've earned. Well, okay, yeah, very clever too. Freemasons probably love to use the word sacrifice in as many short paragraphs as possible. So I'll be back. Yeah, so to try and take my mind off some of the technical difficulties I've been having getting my humble little webisode and channel out in all its fullness as I see it to all of you. I think of Angelina Jolie's tattoo and Rage Against the Machine songs about enemies and the nature of the enemy, and Sun Tzu. I don't have to go as far as to say stupid things like, do I think everyone is against me, or that I'm against everyone, or that I have a special place in the universe? That was one question from a purported psychologist. Yeah, I think that was the most intelligent thing that she had said out of everything she'd said to me. Yeah, it was some years ago now, a while ago now, and I was like, no, I don't think I have any sort of special place in the universe. I don't really think this building is a special place. I couldn't say much before the psychiatrist started going about her religious intuitions. It seems to be that they have this culture where they I don't know if it's supposed to make them feel more dignified in their professional lives, but instead of dwarfing it all together, they keep hold of religion in some way, and they try to sex it up and make it fashionable for the metro professional of today, which isn't hard to do. You can see them going, well, look, if I was going to start a church based on my spiritual supernatural beliefs, no one would touch kids. That's all they have to say to elevate their religion. The thing is, it's still a theistic religion. It's still fucking stupid. It's still distracting their attention from the ramifications of the Rights Charter, the ramifications of basic frameworks of systems of logic and logical thought that was spelt out by Greeks 2 millennia ago. Yeah, I've had a few dreams where I've wondered what Epicurus and Epictetus would have thought about right-wing psychiatric conversations in the modern day. You'll stay at facilities where the fire alarms are embossed with the logo of pharmaceutical company brands of antipsychotic drugs. Surely there's no handshake or scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of sensibility between whoever built the facility and couldn't they at least try and save face and make smoke detectors that said counseling matters, something like that. Um, so yeah, bit of a giveaway. Yeah, direct pharmaceutical drug names carved into the psych ward smoke detectors. It reminds me of when I was working in pharmacy and certain prescription generic drug brand companies were offering new computers to general practitioners because on those new green prescription pads, not pads, prescription forms. This is after they were those tear off pads with the carbon copy. Um, there's a box to be ticked that says brand substitution not permitted. And that would mean in the case in situations where like a GP might be speaking to a foreign or an ethnic customer who is confused by the English language but has an intense medicine regime, then they might find it confusing to constantly go to every chemist they go to. They're being asked if they want to try a different brand of their medicines, and since they don't know English very well, they have a hard enough time remembering what each of their medicines are even for because um, just the English brand names are enough of a burden for them to bear in that regard. So it only gets worse when every single pharmacy they go to has a different brand and a different generic brand of the same medication. And that's one situation where a GP might mark or tick a box that says no, the brand substitution is just not allowed. So that's to tell the pharmacy that no, you can't give them a cheaper brand. But then there was an issue some years ago when I was working in pharmacy where these companies making cheaper generic brands were going to GPs saying, "Would you like a new computer from us, from our company, and we'll put all the software on it for you." And we'll configure it for you. And so all these GPs were going, "Oh wow, great, thanks," and we'll give you we'll pay for your trip to wherever. And so the GPs were going, "Great, thank you," and they'd get their new computers set up in their offices, but they'd rigged the drug selection software so that the software would default to the generic brand of that drug provided by the company who had provided the computer and was also distributing the generic brands of certain drugs. So this is where they became more daring than giving you free pens and sticky notepads. But then, yeah, so what was happening was a whole lot of doctors were trying to give their patients their scripts, and they were printing scripts that were just the doctors weren't knowing how to make sure that the lady from India always got the same brand of her heart medication, because the new computer and the new software was giving them the generic brand of that heart medication, and yeah. So it was automatically printing the scripts, making sure that the pharmacy would only know to provide the generic from that company to that patient, and the doctors weren't able to. Many of them weren't knowing how to change the script to say or to have the same customizational control on how their scripts were being printed, and I think it led to a legal dispute, and that many of the computers were taken back even by some of these drug companies. Um, So yeah, at that point I wished to establish about you observe how one person will talk about you to someone else, but you're connected to them because of work, workplace relationships. So it's equally important to me not to have people saying, well, because I don't think a person can live life probably with regrets, and I want to say that I regret my whole career in healthcare, but I do think you can definitely make mistakes, and I consider the career path now to have definitely been a mistake. Simple things just wasn't allowed were to include essentially, and I'd interviewed and spoke to enough people who were seniors in their careers in pharmacy, saying, and they're looking at me with, their teeth in whatever state they're in, and going, well, we're old fogies. Sometimes I wish I learned to play the piano. I'm just going, okay, fuck, like, I get the point of this moment in my life. It's supposed to help me remember what I got, what subjects I naturally seem to excel in school and get my best grades in, and why I've always felt that I had ongoing drives to continue, and determinations to continue to create in those, in tune with those subjects, whether it would be, comedic segments, interviews, parodies, satires, jokes, filming little jokes. Something with very serious themes. Well, I was just wanting to do that, but I was not sure about whether music work with video clips in addition to a book would be the best way to do that. And because I was committed to the work that I was doing in healthcare, they could never turn around and say, oh, the reason your job opportunities didn't progress is because you have all these other issues, interests, side interests in, you've got your writing and your da-da-da, because it obviously, if you're thinking in those terms, it obviously happened the other way around, where, I'm looking at the pharmacy career going, well, what the fuck next, should I memorize all of America's different brands for Panadol? Oh, they're calling it acetaminophen there, not paracetamol. Oh, wow. What next, pharmacy? I mean, it truly has gotten to the point where I started to think it would definitely be more interesting if I had a terminal illness, because I would then see a different aspect of pharmacy. And it would break with the mundane, Groundhog Day, every day the fucking same. Everyone talks the fucking same in every way. It's the fucking same. Yeah. And so, with what some people were saying about me, I've got close friends I still am in touch with that I've been living in Canberra. And because of people I was wary of, I was hesitant to disclose that much personal information about my social life, personal life, to even my closest associates in the Capital Chemist group. But that was because I was just waiting for them to convince me that the safekeeping of the rights charter mattered or meant something to the management in relation to just the relationship between management and staff. because I obviously heard the way that many of them speak about patience, and I mean, it was enough to offend me. That's the thing. That's one difference between them and me, is that when they're offensive, it's to the face of another human being, one or more. When I'm offensive, it's a controlled set. You know, it's I'll write in, you know, satirical forms of writing, or parodies, or or metaphors, to capture and to draw attention to underlying truths. Essentially, that's why the greatest artists I've always admired have dealt in reality with their art. Throughout history, my favorite characters seem to be the ones who, initially there was an interest I had with scientists who were having to contest and contend with political pressures from the church in their day, some of which been told to throw away or recant from their teachings. The church would be calling them your teachings, as if Galileo was trying to write a new Bible. He was just trying to describe, you know, what he was working on with planetary rotation and the solar system, and, you know, but the church seemed to always be there to be putting certain amount of pressure on on scientists, or forcing them to consider themselves a dangerous or corrupting influence on a society. That's overseers and overlords were always religious dogmatists. So that recurring theme in history has always been an interesting one to me. And also, so too has been those characters who weren't really, they were kind of outsiders and loners who didn't, it's not necessarily that they were marginalized or felt completely marginalized by their society. It's I don't think descriptions like that are entirely appropriate, because I think it misses it sort of misses the point. They might have found there were very few people for them to relate to, and their society was also difficult to relate to their own society. So their way of trying to deal with the world in which they lived was through expressionism and art and writing. And in that respect, the Marquis de Sade is an interesting person, because he there's an element of humility in him, because if you imagine his time in history, where now the printing press is available, your family doesn't have to be so wealthy as to be able to afford a scribe to sit down and hand copy every page of a book that your family wants, because now the printing press is out. And then the Marquis de Sade, who had some he came from a wealthy family. He had I can't remember the term for him before he started the libertine movement, but he was, you know, he wasn't lower class, but he did enjoy being able to provide literature to the non-upper class. And, you know, I had read about there being cafes where people would gather and take in turns passing a Marquis de Sade book around in a circle, and he was writing all these depraved stories about well, it's, you know, if you're that sort of religious thinker, you might even want to call him a prophet, to warn us all about people like Cardinal Pell, because yeah, his stories are not it's not about him teaching moral lessons, of course not. Uh, that's the that's not the that's not the scope of an artist or a writer's duties to their fellow man, you know. And that's the interesting thing about him, is that it's almost as if deep down he was hoping that there would start to be a rising against and an opposition against uh, the wide range of injustices that constantly go on because of religious thinkers. Um, and without touching on that uh, fundamental dividing line that are in debates and conversations I constantly find myself revisiting, which is whether um, it's whether the obliteration of theistic religion is necessary for actually achieving the goals as far as humanism goes and human relations go. That all religions that are, are social, try to claim that they're offering society through their religion, like church youth groups or religious idealistic groups that think they can save the world and that God's got a special plan for them in their life, and God wants you to join that church and help God and help these people all save the world and da da da. You've heard that all before, and so it's a debate where I keep, you spend time reading books by liberal mystics who will say outright, no, we don't believe that any sort of supernatural God exists. We don't think there's a God who works on a reward and punishment basis. And if our moral, Albert Einstein said words to the effect of, if our moral intuitions were reliant on either the approval of and reward by, or the disapproval of and punishment from a supernatural God, then we would be like dogs, basically. That's not the correct choice of words that he used. But that was the point he was trying to illustrate, and that's because morality as a category, if you were to enroll in philosophy, you could probably spend. You wouldn't even need to. You could spend so much time just studying issues on ethics and morality. You wouldn't need to. You wouldn't have time for theology and whether or not a God exists, and is there life after next Thursday, and But and Sam Harris has spoken in recent years about that paradigm that Christian theists and theists of most kinds, especially in all organized religion and the three Abrahamic monotheistic faith traditions, all live by, is that essentially it does boil down in their minds to whether or not their God is going to approve and therefore potentially endorse, if not reward them, or then disapprove and punish them for this or that and the other. Instead of, if you take that as your only framework for understanding morality and apply that to all your relationships and your dealings, it's just stupid. You are with that outlook, you're not appreciating other people for things that you're identifying about them. Instead, you're wondering if God's gonna make them burn for all eternity while giving you a pair of wings, while explaining after you die why he made sure you had to meet these people at this particular time. And you just miss everything. Instead, just rejecting that paradigm and thinking about the good as being that which is enhancing to life, to the well-being and flourishing of conscious creatures, and that which is evil as being that which diminishes the welfare and well-being and flourishing of conscious creatures as evil. And Sam Harris argues, and I agree with this argument of his, that even at heart, and even in terms of their own reductive reasoning, Christians and other theistic evangelists, they even know that what's good or bad has to do with well-being and flourishing as the good, and the loss of well-being and an impediment to flourishing as being bad. They even know that that's more like what good and bad mean, because that's how they will think of their God in their own minds. They'll be thinking, is what's my God's well-being like because of how I'm living my life today. So yeah, and then at the same time, on the other hand, questions to a Bible-believing Christian, you can say, are you even able to give me a single definition of what is meant by the word good or the word evil, that is applicable to every conceivable circumstance, or more circumstances than is applicable in the secular world or in the unbelieving community? Because you can come forward with wacky, abhorrent, and horrific propositions and concepts, like in the Old Testament of the Christian's Bible, God says, if a man meets a virgin who has not been pledged to be married and he rapes her, he must pay her father 50 shekels of silver, and then he must marry the girl, and he can never divorce her as long as he lives because he has violated her. So the Christians have that written in their Old Testament. So long as the Christians are saying God is good all the time, God is good. Jesus died to fulfill the scriptures. Jesus said every jot and tittle of the law must be upheld. If someone left a Christian church and went off and found an unpledged girl today, and raped her, and then went up to her father with 50 pieces of silver, according to everything his church would have taught him, he could always be saying, but you said that this was good, and I thought God was telling me it was good as well. I prayed about it a lot. Like, I know it's in your Bible, Lord, but do you really want me to rape? Like, shouldn't I rape someone, older a bit and maybe a bit stronger, and all those anyway. I'm not the biggest fan of the agendas of churches. So anyway, but to avoid, if you don't want to be doing direct quote pulling from the Old Testament, there's always a good website though on that topic called theevilbible.com, and the people who created that website have systematically categorized different types of evil that is represented in the Bible as part of the Christian God, or the God of the Abrahamic faith's vision for our little planet. So evilbible.com is an interesting site to learn more on that topic. But yeah, if you were to approach sure, try it on liberals, try it on fundamentalists, if they're whatever the type of monotheist they are, you can just say, well, is your deity said to be all powerful, all loving, and all knowing? as just 3 rudimentary initial check questions, and if they say yes, then you can actually you can go in plenty of different directions in discussions which include, like, they can be stumped by simple questions like what is meant by good. That is a consistent definition of the word good, because unless they're fucked in the head, a Christian apologist won't say, well, sometimes rape is just part of how things have to be because of God's plan, but God will make up for it later. He'll, if someone's raped, maybe they'll get a rape horn, and they can sprinkle some holy water on the rape horn, because it's all part of God's plan. So I've spent years just studying these sorts of topics and debating metaphysics and epistemology on forums. And because there are universal, or more or less universal, things that can be said about the God of monotheistic faith traditions, then Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, their God concepts stand relevant to many of the same criticisms that can be in principle launched at Christianity. So long it just depends on the properties and attributes that are inherent to the concept of the God that the religion is worshipping and that they stand for. We'll be back. The last time Roger Toll, founder, defendant of the Rights Charter, he accused them of trying to blow up the moon to stop women's periods. Roger smokes monkey pole.